You told yourself you'd stop. Maybe last week, maybe this morning. You opened the app for something else entirely, and then you were there again, on their page, reading posts you've already read, looking for something you can't name. You didn't decide to do that, something else did. The explanation most people reach for is emotional. You still have feelings. You're not over it. You're weak, or stuck, or both. That explanation is comfortable because it puts the behavior in a category you understand, a personal failing that a better version of you would have already fixed. The research points somewhere else entirely. What's driving the behavior is not emotion in the way most people mean the word. It's a dopamine circuit that has been trained, specifically and efficiently, to treat this person as a source of reward. And dopamine circuits don't respond to decisions. They respond to cues. The mechanism begins before the relationship ends. Every time you checked their profile and found something new, a post, a story, a sign of activity, your brain registered a small reward, not a large one. That's important. Large, predictable rewards produce satisfaction and eventually indifference. Small, unpredictable rewards produce something neurologically distinct. They produce craving. Researchers call this variable ratio reinforcement. It's the same schedule used by slot machines, by social media feeds, by every system that has ever been deliberately engineered to be difficult to stop. The reward comes sometimes, not always. You never know when. And that uncertainty doesn't reduce the drive to check, it amplifies it. The brain doesn't learn to expect less, it learns to want more. By the time the relationship ends, the circuit is already built. The cue is their name, their face, the specific corner of an app where their presence lives. The circuit doesn't know the relationship is over. It doesn't process narrative, it processes pattern. The pattern says, check here. Sometimes there is something, and something feels better than the alternative. The alternative is what makes this harder than most people realize. When you don't check, the dopamine circuit doesn't go quiet. It produces a low-grade state of unresolved wanting. Not pain, exactly. Not grief, exactly. A specific kind of cognitive restlessness that the brain interprets as a problem requiring a solution. And the solution the brain already knows, the one it has practiced hundreds of times, is to check up. This is why deciding to stop doesn't work. The decision lives in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, planning, long-term thinking. The circuit lives deeper, in regions that don't consult the prefrontal cortex before acting. By the time the decision has been made, the behavior has often already happened. You find yourself there, and then remember you weren't supposed to be. There is a second layer to this that the dopamine model doesn't fully capture. The brain of a person after a significant relationship doesn't just lose a source of reward, it loses a source of prediction. For months, or years, this person was a primary input in how your brain modeled the world. What they were doing, what they were feeling, whether they were okay. These were data points your brain was actively processing, consistently, as part of its normal function. When that input disappears, the brain doesn't immediately stop processing for it. It continues running the same subroutines. Looking for the data, checking the channels where the data used to arrive. The behavior that looks like obsession from the outside is, from the inside of your nervous system, something closer to maintenance. A system doing exactly what it was built to do in a situation it was not built for. The 2021 study, published in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships, found that post-breakup social media surveillance, the clinical term for checking an ex's profile, was most persistent not in people who were most emotionally devastated, but in people who had the highest degree of daily digital contact during their relationship. The circuit was more established, the pattern was more practiced, the behavior had more momentum. What this means is that the intensity of the loop is not a measure of how much you loved them. It is a measure of how thoroughly your brain integrated them into its prediction architecture. That specific moment, maybe 3 seconds after you open their profile, when you feel something that isn't quite relief and isn't quite pain, researchers describe it as a partial reward response. The cue was followed, the circuit fired, but the reward didn't fully arrive, because what the circuit is actually looking for no longer exists in the form it expects. So the loop doesn't close, it restarts. You can't stop checking their profile for the same reason you can't stop a slot machine by explaining to it that the odds are unfavorable. The system doesn't process that information, it processes the pull of the lever and the possibility of what comes next. The question the neuroscience leaves you with is not whether you'll stop. You will, eventually. The circuits retrain. The prediction models update. The cue loses its charge as the pattern goes unreinforced long enough. The question is what you're actually doing in the 3 seconds after you open their page, because it's not looking for them. It's the brain running a search for something it built around them that no longer has anywhere to go.